Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. First of all, before I start my editorial, wish you all a very, very happy, prosperous and healthy 2023. Okay, now let's get into the subject at hand. The topic for the day is close to 50 odd petitioners went to the Supreme Court and said that the notification of 8th of November 2016 on demonetization by the government of India was wrong. They questioned that notification. Today, the Supreme Court passed a judgment saying that, listen, you know what? The demonetization was right. The way it was done was correct. This is what the Supreme Court said. Let's talk about that. First, let's understand in a very simple way as to what the Supreme Court said. And then I have got a few questions of my own, which I want to share with you. Let's get right into the show. Like what I said in the introduction, let's divide this entire editorial into three parts. So it will be easier for me to explain and you to understand. Part number one is, what did the petitioner argue in the Supreme Court? Now there were 50 odd petitioners. Okay, let's first discuss what did they argue in the Supreme Court. The next what we will talk about is what did the 5-member bench, there were 5 judges who decided on this particular case, what did the 5-member judge say to the petitioners? That is the second part. And the final part, like I told you, my few questions that I wanted to ask. Okay, now let's first start with what did the petitioners ask of the Supreme Court? Now, I will be doing a lot of reading because obviously I don't want to go wrong in anything that I say. So I'll be doing a lot of reading. Please excuse me on that front. Now, the first point is the petitioners went and told the court that, listen, you know what? The decision of demonetization should be an RBI decision. It should be a decision that is left to RBI. It is not a government decision. So how could a government pass a notification without consultation with RBI? That is the first argument in the petition. The second argument in the petition was that under section 26(2) of the RBI Act, okay, a series can be demonetized and entire denomination cannot be demonetized. What I mean by that is, you see, this is the series of a note. Where if you can see this in the camera, this is a series of a note. This was the argument. How did the government pass a notification to demonetize 500 and 1000 rupees in totality? This was the argument. Now, let us come to the next part of my editorial. The next part of my editorial is what the judgment was. What did the Supreme Court say? The Supreme Court was split. The Supreme Court was split in 4:1. 4 judges, that is Justice S A Nazeer, Justice B.R. Gavai, Justice A.S. Bopana and Justice V. Ramasubramaniam found that there was absolutely no flaw in the November 8th Gazette notification and held that it satisfied the test of proportionality. This was what 4 judges said. On the other hand, Justice B.V. Nagarathna, she had a problem and she was the voice of dissent. So this is how the verdict came, 4:1. Now let's first talk about people who agreed to the notification. What did the judge say? The judge rejected the argument that the recommendation of demonetization should have been emanated from the Reserve Bank of India. The ruling authored by Justice Gavai said that it appeared from the records that there was a consultation between the government and RBI for 6 months, like I told you. How can you not do it with the consultation of RBI? And how did this notification emanate from the government unilaterally? The judge said nothing doing. According to the records, the government was in consultation with RBI for 6 months. Number 1. Number 2. Remember the number 2 thing I spoke about, 26(2)? According to the same bench, they said that the court also judged the petitioner's argument that the expression any in section 26(2) of the RBI Act should be read as some and not all, that the center can therefore demonetize only the currency of a particular series of a denomination. So the court said no. Court said it is not that the government can only demonetize one series of a denomination. No, if the government so pleases, it can demonetize the entire denomination. So both the argument was thrown out of the window. This is what 4 out of the 5-member bench said. Now let us come to Justice B.V. Nagarathna's argument. Justice B.V. Nagarathna saw it differently. Justice Nagarathna asserted that scrapping of rupees 500, rupees 1000 series note had to be done through a legislation and not notification. She also differed from the majority view on points of the centre's power under section 26(2) of the RBI Act. Justice Nagarathna said no, because if you are passing a notification to demonetize, it has to be done, and if the government is doing the notification, then it has to be done in consultation with the legislature or by passing an ordinance. You can't just unilaterally go one fine day and pass a notification saying that, listen, you know what, we are going to demonetize the X denomination. This is what Justice Nagarathna said. Further on, Justice B.V. Nagarathna went on to call the notification of November 8th unlawful. She said, records show no independent application of mind by RBI. Notification of November 8, 2016 is unlawful and the action of demonetization of currency note is vitiated, which means it was not effective. So she said, Baba, theek hai. You are saying that the RBI had argued, RBI was in discussion with the government of India and it was done with the consultation of RBI, which is fine. But the fact is, I don't see RBI's mind in it. RBI has not put in their mind behind this. RBI has not gone and done research. RBI has not gone and really deep dived into a demonetization and justified the demonetization. She said, argument theek hai, the consultation was theek hai. So that is what her point of view was. However, she maintained that the measure has been regarded as unlawful, but on a purely legalistic analysis, relevant provisions of the Act and not on the subject of demonetization. She said, listen, the intentions may be good. It is unlawful purely based on legal, purely based on paper. Okay, on legalistic point of view. That is how it is unlawful. Otherwise, it is fine. We are not saying, she is not saying that the intention was bad, is what she said. Okay, so this was her dissenting argument. She also said that my view on each of the questions have differed from the Justice Gavai's response to the question he had framed. If demonetization is to be initiated by the central government, such power is to be derived from the entry 36 of list 1, which speaks of currency, coinage, legal tender and foreign exchange. The judgment proposed by Justice Gavai does not recognize that Act does not envisage initiation of demonetization of banknotes by the central government. So, two different arguments. Argument number 1, 4 out of the 5 judges said that it is correct, fine, they consulted with RBI, and after they consulted with RBI, they demonetized. They have all the right to demonetize a denomination of notes. It need not be 1 series or 2 series and all that. They have all the right to demonetize, so it's all fine. So they upheld the demonetization notification. Whereas the single dissenting judge, she said, listen, you know what? Finally, the government doesn't have the right to demonetize the note. The right remains with RBI, but if the government does want to demonetize the note, then it has to either go to the legislature, that is put the point up in the parliament, put the bill up in the parliament, get it passed by the parliament, it has to go to the legislature, or it has to pass an ordinance if it has to be kept a secret. You know, after going and telling the parliament, entire world ko jaake bolega, bhai, demonetization hum log kar rahe hain, so people will make their arrangements. So obviously it has to be, if it has to be done in secrecy, then an ordinance should have been passed and not a notification. These are the views of the judges, the 5-member judges. Now, we covered the petitioner's question, we covered the views of the judges. Now let us come into our questions. My first question is, okay, all this is fine, but why was demonetization taken up in the first place? Demonetization was taken up in the first place because demonetization was supposed to get black money back to India. Did it get black money back to India? Who will ask that question? My point number 2 is demonetization was taken up because the monies to these terrorists and militants especially in Kashmir, those monies would be stopped. Did the militancy in Kashmir stop? That's the question number 2. Who will answer this question? My question number 3 is, I think a lot of it was covered by Justice Nagarathna too. RBI was consulted. But was RBI in concurrence to this? Did RBI said that yes, this is a great plan, let's go ahead? Was RBI in concurrence to this? I can be consulted of 100 things, but I can't be part of that if I don't concur to it, can I? So that's my question number 3. My question number 4. What happens to those people who lost their businesses, who lost their livelihoods, whose business have never picked up after 2016? What happens to those people? Who will talk for those people? The question here is not whether government followed the protocols, followed the forms, followed the notification, followed the procedure as it is. That's not the question, I think. In my mind, that's not the major question. The major question here was demonetization the right decision to have been taken in 2016, November 8th? Was it the right decision? If it was not, who will be held responsible? That's the question that needs to be asked, and that's the question that needs answer. So that's my editorial for the day. As usual, please do subscribe to our channel. New year, I've already told you, HW News Network will now carry all the programs together. Hindi, English, you can find in HW News Network. That doesn't mean that English channel will be discarded. English channel will continue with English programs. Hindi channel will continue with Hindi programs. But HW News Network will carry both those, the best of both these programs, both these videos in that particular channel. And that's what the New Year change in HW has been. Please subscribe to us. Please pick up a good package if you can. Help us to do our job better. Till I see you next time, that is tomorrow at 10 p.m. Namaskar.
Hi, you have been watching our videos on HW News English. But why be content with content in just one language when you can choose from both? Yes, from 1st of January, we are bringing together the repository of our ground reports, interviews and analysis under the umbrella of HW News Network. So, while HW News English will stay as it is, you will now be able to watch our Hindi and English reportage together. So don't forget to watch HW News Network from 1st of January.
To know about the latest updates on our new news app, go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.